Hi, Nadeem here from Smart Riding. Today I'm fitting the Thunderbox TB-UO2 to my bike. Now this is made by a company called Healtech, and essentially it's a box of tricks that allow you to hook up multiple accessories and have them ignition switched on, and there is another way that they can do without actually splicing into wires, and I'll talk about both of them as I'm doing this. The TB-UO2 is the one that handles up to 32 amps of power. I got this because I have certain items that draw a lot of power, so I thought it was worth buying the 32 amp one. There is a TB-UO1 which handles up to 16 amp per power. I put into the Smart Riding group that I'll be fitting this, and so people were giving me their comments. Most were positive, most were saying they work really well. One chap said that you have to be careful if you've got things that are drawing too much power. It can cause some issues, like it won't switch itself off properly. I'm not sure if that's because it's been overloaded. I've got an in-off power hub at the moment, and that does that constantly, even with very little load, which is why I'm changing. The in-off power hub is not one that I recommend because it just doesn't seem to work properly. It never switches itself off. I have to switch the ignition on off about 3 times to get it to go off, and frankly I just got sick of it, which is why I bought the Thunderbox, and there seems to be quite a lot of positive reviews of it. That's why I bought it. But like I said, I bought the 32 amp one so that if it is too much power being drawn from anywhere, then it should be covered. Now the unit itself is basically solid state. There's no moving parts inside this, and from what I gather, even inside the box they fill it with like an epoxy resin, so nothing shakes about or moves or anything. It's reasonably well made from what I can see, and it's small enough. On the back of it, it's got Velcro fitted so that you can just Velcro it in under the seat somewhere. I'll talk about the actual fitting of this in terms of wiring. There are 2 ways of doing it. One is you just run to positive and negative, and that's it, you're done. The unit does detect when the voltage goes up in the battery. So when the voltage goes up, it will switch on. So once you start the bike up, even without an ignition switched wire, which is this one, the white one, that you can plug in and use as ignition switch, even without that, it will power up and power down. The only thing I'm worried about is that I tend to use a battery tender. I use the BMW Motorrad one, and that puts 14.2 volts into the battery, and you can see it on the meter and it says that. So I'm going to test it and see if it works. So we'll see if it switches itself on and off without the cable. If it does, then happy days. I don't need to put the ignition switch cable to fit that on. If I do, I will do it, but I'll be doing this in more or less real time. I mean, I'll cut some sections short so that the video doesn't drag on, but you'll see me doing this in real time, more or less. Okay, so what I've done is I've got the positive and negative onto the Thunderbox, and they've got a flashing green light coming on, which means it's in standby mode. Now, what I wanted to test was, without the ignition switch cable, the unit is designed to come on when it detects current going into the battery. So like when you start your engine up, the alternator starts putting current into the battery, it detects that and switches on. Now, I want to test whether using my battery charger, which is the BMW Motorrad one, will that do the same and actually start powering it up? If it does, then I don't want to do it this way. Then I will plug in the white cable to the ignition switch cable, and that will make it easier so that it doesn't start powering everything up just because I'm charging the battery. So let's test that first. So that's the battery charger here. It's plugged in. See, it's telling me it's going to 13.9, 14 volts is going through this into the battery now. 14.1. It seems to be okay for now. I mean, it's at 14.4 volts, but I don't know, I think there's a small delay, so I just want to make doubly sure. So I might just give this like 30 seconds and then see how it goes. Right, so one final test. Switch the ignition on. start the back up. So let's see how long that takes. That's 5 seconds. So 5 seconds to power up. So this is on and my lights are on. So I'll switch the lights on as well. Let's switch off. Let's see how long that takes. That was 7 seconds to power off. So 5 seconds to power on and 7 seconds to power off. And that's without the ignition switch cable. So all this running from the TBUO2 is a positive and a negative to the battery. And then these two accessories, the lights and the carburetor unit here, are plugged into the TBUO2. Nice and simple.